In this video, I'm going to show you how to work the bodice. It's a little bit different to what you would do if you have the little cap sleeve. Here we are closing the side seams for our upper bodice and then also the side seams for the lining of the bodice. Both are joined with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now I would try this on your child just in case you want to make it a little bit smaller, or indeed you want to take less of a seam allowance because you need a little bit more. So it's worthwhile checking this if your child was just within the margins recommended on the pattern. And then we sew those together and iron the seams apart. The next step is to pin the lining to the upper material with some pins which face basically vertical to whatever seam we're going to do, so that we can leave them in and they sit quite nicely. Now we're going to put the sleeve in, so find the snip for the front and then we're taking that sleeve and we're pulling it through into the bodice. I'm going to first put the underarm seams on top of each other, and then I'm going to pin the top of the sleeve head, to the shoulder seam. And then I will pin first from the underarm seam up, and it's about 2 pins that you put in. And while I do this, I roll the fabric over my fingers so the left hand is really in there, to make sure that this sleeve will not sit tightly. It's very, very easy to do that, and we don't want to do that. It should sit in very evenly, so it's important that you roll that edge slightly. I do the same on both sides. And now I can start pulling in my gather threads to make it fit. And again, I want to pull my gather threads up so that I have about 2 centimeters or tops 2.5 centimeters on either side of the shoulder seam. I made the gathers for these puff sleeves very dense. I think it's really lovely to do that, and it's also cut in a way that the puff sleeve will stand up a little bit over the shoulder. I'm going to put another pin in there and now measure it, and it's 1.5 inches, which is okay, really. It's a little bit more than 2.5, but I can adjust that in a minute if I want to. Now I'm going to pull it from the other side. And again, I put another pin in there, and you could also now secure that gather thread so that it can't go anywhere, that it can't become loose anymore. So put the pin in vertically and then just wrap your yarn around it in a figure of 8, and now I can distribute them without them slipping out again. Take this to the outside. This is one of the most important things, to just check that it's all even Steven and looks really nice. And I think that's quite good, really pretty. I do the other side as well, and then what I do is I compare both and make sure that my gathers start and end at exactly the same point. And if they don't, this is the time to put it right. So now I can go and sew both my sleeves in. It's really hard to show what you're doing here, as you can see, but we've done it on the other sleeve already. So here we're just sewing around, obviously checking that everything is nice and flat underneath it, and making sure that none of the gathers push over the edge and therefore make it all a little bit smaller. In the sleeve area, we don't want that. We keep everything edge to edge, and if need be, you can adjust the gathers with a pin. And when the sleeves have been sewn in, all I have to do is serge the edge. Make sure that you have removed all the pins. I also tend to cut off all the threads. I don't want anything hanging in there, even though I'm cutting things off. If the threads come from the seam line, you want to cut them off first. You don't want them in there at all. And then after that, all we have to do is iron that seam flat. And that's the end of our Isabella dress now, really the final clip. I hope you enjoyed this, and don't forget that you can watch all the other little clips from the Western blouse, which gives you a lot more options for the cuffs of the sleeves. They're really interesting, so go have a look at that as well, and well, come back for another project. Bye for now.